Hi guys, welcome to Little Wicket Railway. I'm Rob, and in this video we're taking a look at the Hattons Warwell Wagons from Accurascale. It's been ages since I made a video looking at a model, so when these Warwell wagons arrived last week, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to get back into it. And you've probably noticed that I said Hattons and Accurascale, so these are in the Hattons original branding, but after Hattons closed, Accurascale took over responsibility for these, so I suppose technically these now come from Accurascale. I'm pretty sure that Hattons originally released these models for the first time back in 2017, so this is a rerun of the tooling in a few different liveries. And I don't think anything major has changed in terms of features or details between that original run and now, except price. And as far as I can tell, these actually went down in price. And I'm prepared to be corrected on this, but for the original run in 2017, I think these were priced at £33. But this time they were being sold for £25 or £22.50 if you bought more than one. So that's an £8 to £10 reduction, and I can't quite believe it because model prices never seem to go down. Maybe because they've recovered the cost of the original tooling, they're able to give up a bit of the margin now. I don't know, let me know your thoughts in the comments. These latest batch had 8 different variants, most are currently sold out, but more are on the way according to the Accurascale website. I've got a couple of these LMS variants to take a look at, but I'll also be comparing them to the Oxford Rail versions. But before we do that, let's get some history on these pretty interesting wagons. The 50-ton Warwell wagons were constructed for a very specific task, to transport the US-built Sherman tanks in Britain during the Second World War in the build-up to D-Day. The existing flat wagons couldn't be used because the Sherman tanks were too high. Therefore, 200 specially commissioned well wagons were produced for the task. The well part of the name referring to the dip in the middle of the wagon that the tank would sit in. After the war, a large number of the wagons remained in service for many decades to come and were adapted to transport other pieces of equipment. Let's take a closer look at the model. And the first thing to point out is that this wagon is heavy, coming in at 99 grams, and that's thanks to the mostly metal construction. This version has the overall dark grey colour scheme with the wooden planking in the centre section, which has moulded wood grain effect on it. And there's plenty of moulded detail all over this wagon, including the rings that would be used to secure loads and the riveting all along the top and down the sides. Not many separately fitted parts on this, but we do have sprung buffers, and the buffers are meant to have that flat bit on top. That's not a production error. This was so that the tanks could drive along the wagons without clipping the tops of the buffers. On the sides we've got separately fitted brake handles, and underneath we've got the brake rigging. You can also see the underside of the wooden planking and more rivets on the underframe, so although rarely seen, this area has not been neglected. Along the sides you've got printed detail and various markings, and note the dual plates here. I believe the LMS had a habit of fitting their own plates alongside the original maker's plate, so that's great attention to detail from Hattons. Bogie detail is good, and the wheels have also been painted. One NEM tension lock coupling came pre-fitted and the other is in the accessories bag along with some other parts. Unfortunately, there's no instructions with the model, so I'm not 100% sure on how these extra bits should be used, but they look very detailed and I'm sure I could figure it out with a bit of research. I'm guessing they go in the holes at either end. The wagon seems to be very free rolling and the bogies swing freely. There's no kinematics or anything like that. The coupling's centred purely due to the design of the NEM socket. I'll get them out and put them on the rail shortly to see how they really perform, but before I do that, I want to compare them to the other Warwell wagon in my collection from Oxford Rail. I think the toolings originate from a very similar time, around 2017. You can still buy this version for around £37, so that's £12 more than the Hattons/Accurascale version, but it does come with a tank. Rails of Sheffield sell a version without the tank for £28.95, so even without the tank, the Oxford Rail version is quite a bit more expensive. Let's get them side by side and compare. They've both got the wooden planking, but the Hattons version has the wood grain effect, whereas the Oxford Rail version doesn't. The Oxford Rail version doesn't have the rings moulded into the planking, but it does come with the chains to secure the tank. The moulding on the Hattons Accurascale version is generally much finer, particularly on the riveting. No sprung buffers on the Oxford Rail version, but it does come with interchangeable oval buffers if you wanted to model a later period. Both have similar side profiles, but the Oxford Rail bogies have some additional text printed on them. That doesn't necessarily make the Hattons version incorrect, it could just be a different variant. The belly of the Accurascale model has significantly more detail, and the Oxford Rail version just has the brake rigging and not a lot else. The couplings on the Accurascale version are connected directly to the bogies, whereas they're separate on the Oxford Rail version and have this spring-operated centering system. They've made the coupling the same colour as the model, but not the hook, which looks a bit jarring. But the biggest difference is weight. The Oxford Rail version comes in 60 grams lighter than the Hattons version, and that's mostly because it's made of plastic. Although that might have been a conscious decision because once the tank is on top, the total weight is 124 grams. So that's a quick overview of both wagons side by side. Let's get them on the track and see how they run. On the outside loop, we've got a Bachmann 1P and LMS livery, pulling the two Hattons/Accurascale Warwells. And on the inside line, we've got an Oxford Rail Dean Goods, pulling the Oxford Rail version. Overall, they're both good models, but I think the Accurascale version has the upper hand, the detail seems a bit finer, and it's quite a bit cheaper. It's great that Accurascale have taken on the product and will hopefully continue to make it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you've enjoyed this video, then please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Special thanks to the YouTube members and patrons for all your support. It's very much appreciated and your names are up on the screen now. That's about it for this video. Thanks for watching and I will hopefully see you again soon.